Inside your spotlight this morning on the Now Morning Show, we take a look at the outlook for 2024 rainy season. To do that, I want to welcome meteorologist Ean Wallace. Good morning to you, sir.
Oh, good morning to you.
How are you doing this morning?
Everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm quite well. I'm looking at the clouds coming in. It's good to see some rain.
Well, the rainy season officially started, the hurricane season officially started on June 1st. And I know that we've had some severe weather conditions, especially with the heat. Everybody's been complaining, they've been complaining. Does the heat that we just experienced for the past few months, will that affect how we enter this hurricane season?
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the heat. Obviously, we've been seeing some rather hot days, particularly through April and through May as well. In fact, 14 out of the first 15 days in April, you saw temperatures over 34 degrees Celsius in Trinidad. You know, it's been very warm. Not only for Trinidad, but for the Caribbean on a whole.
Well, I've been seeing the world at this point, because I saw some places in Africa that have been having over 34 and 35 degrees Celsius as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And April was a record warm year. It's the warmest recorded by the World Meteorological Organization. And that, unfortunately, is a sign of things to come. This year, 2024, is probably set to be the warmest on record. So if we keep going as the way we are now, that heat is definitely going to continue. That when we talk about the heat, a lot of that heat has been a remnant from last year. We're in the middle of an El Nino, and that El Nino has caused warmer conditions in the Atlantic Ocean. And not only that, we've had very warm sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic and the Pacific. So in the Atlantic, temperatures are about 1.5 to 2 degrees warmer than they should be for this time of the year. In fact, our May surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean are as warm as they are usually in August or September, which is our peak in the hurricane season.
Which means it's going to get warmer still.
And that is a major concern, obviously, for forecasters, not only at Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service, across the Caribbean.
Of course.
Because if we're looking at those temperatures being 2 degrees above normal in most places, then that's going to be fuel for our hurricanes. Okay, and it's also going to obviously translate as well into us feeling some heat as well, because that residual heat that's in the waters continues to translate upwards within the atmosphere as well. So that's something that we should be
definitely should be concerned about. All right, so before we go any further, I just need to back up, because we throw around this El Nino. Can you explain what is El Nino exactly?
Okay. Well, El Nino is an atmospheric phenomena that exists within the Pacific region. It's part of its partner is La Nina. So altogether, we call this an ENSO, which is the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So it's two parts, El Nino and a La Nina. And an El Nino occurs is when you've got very warm waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean, and this tends to basically cause us to get much more wetter conditions in some parts of the world and dry conditions in others. And a La Nina, which is the opposite, is when we start to get the cooling of the waters in the eastern Pacific. So once that begins to happen, that obviously tends to affect us as well. We tend to get wetter than normal conditions during a La Nina, but also a La Nina tends to weaken our trade winds as well as lower the vertical wind shear. What that means is it tends to favor more hurricanes.
More hurricanes.
That's an La Nina. So we're coming out of an El Nino now. We're going to be into neutral conditions through this month of June, probably into maybe the first part of July, and then we get into the La Nina as we get towards late July, August, and definitely by September. And that's when the hurricane season would be at its peak.
At its peak. So from what I've been reading and what I understand is that this year we can basically be expecting more hurricanes to be formed in the Atlantic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, we're looking at between the 17 to 25 named storms. Okay. Now the biggest thing about that number is that it is the greatest number of named storms forecasted by the National Hurricane Center, which is the regional specialized meteorological center for tropical cyclones in our part of the world. And for that, that means that we're going to be experiencing not only a greater frequency of storms, but there's also the likelihood of us seeing some of those more becoming hurricanes, and obviously more becoming major hurricanes. In fact, we're looking at between 8 to 13 hurricanes and looking at 4 to 7 major hurricanes, but that's across the entire Caribbean basin.
Right.
That's the Caribbean, that's the Atlantic Ocean, as well as the Gulf of Mexico. But for us, I think east of us.
That's the part I need to ask about. Can we forecast if it's gonna get to us? Because we love to say God is a Trini, and we have the northern range to protect us, and we love to see all these tropes and stuff. But how is it look for us directly?
Exactly. Well, I mean, at the Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service, we actually perform our own modeling. So we do our own forecasts, and from the National Climate Outlook Forum that we had earlier in May, we're looking at 14 of those. We're looking at the possibility of us seeing basically 6 named storms. We usually get about 4.
Right.
But the most likely number is 6. It could range between 3 to 8.
And that's storms, not hurricanes?
That's storms.
Okay.
In terms of hurricanes, we're likely seeing, my most likely number is actually going to be 3. We normally see about 1. So the range is going to be between 1 to 4 hurricanes, but the most likely number is 3. And that area is east of Trinidad and Tobago into the Atlantic up towards the Cabo Verde Islands, and it's just south of 15 degrees north. So it includes the area of interest for Trinidad and Tobago in which we can get storms forming and in which we may get hurricanes forming as well. And that basically is an above normal forecast. So as we said, most likely number is 6. We usually get about 4. So you can just by that number alone, we know that this is going to be a very active season for Trinidad and Tobago as well as Eastern Caribbean. But coming back to God is a Trini, we have to say that it only takes one. It only takes one storm. We say this every year, but remember, a storm does not have to have a direct impact on Trinidad and Tobago. We can have storms coming, just passing very close to us, and they can obviously, the impact of the system can be outside of that cone. So this is an important part. When you see that forecast cone and you see the center line, and it may be, it's going to Barbados, or it's going to go across to Grenada, the impacts can actually be outside because the storm system can be larger than that cone. Yeah. Exactly. So those are the things that will be of concern to the Met Service as well as to the disaster agencies and so on.
Most definitely. What sort of preparation would you recommend for us as citizens? I mean, besides this, obviously we know the ODPM is the go-to place to get all the preparation things that we need. But as a meteorologist, what would you advise us to do?
Well, the first thing I would say is monitor all the official updates and sources and forecasts. The Met Service is quite active on Facebook, social media, Twitter, Instagram, and so on. And you will notice that for any systems which are going to develop, you will hear it most likely first on the Met Services. There will be broadcasts being put out on social media by various partners. So we will basically be ensuring that we in Trinidad and Tobago are up to date. If there's something that's going to be affecting us, then we'll be, if you look out for any of those information bulletins that will be issued as you go through the hurricane season. And then for the wet season as well, you'll notice there will be adverse weather alerts and so on. We had the first one.
We had the first one over the weekend, yeah.
So it's the start of what I would probably say for citizens. Make sure that around your area you have your flood ready. If you're in a flood-prone area, there's a heightened risk of flooding this wet season. So make sure your sandbag ready. Obviously, for those particular areas like northeastern areas of Trinidad and also western parts of Trinidad, there's an enhanced risk of flooding there.
And how often does the Met Office remodel or update their model so that we get the most up-to-date predictions?
Okay. Well, the predictions that we look at for the wet season, those get updated basically on a monthly basis. We tend to look at exactly what's happening.
Right.
Not only the major drivers, which will, in our case, we looked at the El Nino transition to La Nina. We look at the other atmospheric conditions. We look at the sea surface temperatures. So we will be following those as you go through the season. And at the end of every week on a Friday, we'll give you a week 3 forecast, which is basically looking at how wet or dry the next 3 weeks will be. The third week will be.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea of whether you're looking at an extended forecast, whether we're going to be seeing more rainfall than we usually expect for week 3. And then obviously that ties into our wet season forecast. And then you've got your daily forecast as well.
Daily forecast as well.
Yeah.
All right, Ian. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us this update. And we're going to hopefully be able to check in with you as the season continues because we know we're going to need those updates. I mean, yes, we will check the Met Office as well. But if you can could come back in and give us a little update every now and then, we'd appreciate it as well.
Well, I'm welcome, and thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
It's great to have you back. We take a quick break and come back with more on the Now Morning Show. Ean Wallace, ladies and gentlemen, chatting about the outlook for the rainy season 2024 and the hurricane season. Be as prepared as you possibly can and pay attention to all the bulletins. We'll be right back.
Rainy morning love, I can't get enough, I can't get enough. It's that pull them curtains now and